Hello, this is Travoris Carnes, the moderator for today's webinar. Thank you for attending. Today we'll be covering how to turbocharge your open house into a lead machine. Welcome to the webinar. Our organizer for today is Mr. Jeff Jabora. He is going to lead us through the webinar. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Jeff, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. My name is Jeff Jabora, and I'm the National Director of Growth and Development for Allison James Estates and Homes. Today's webinar is hosted by our sponsor, Movement Mortgage. Brian Kazula, a Senior Loan Officer with Movement Mortgage, would like to say a few words. Good morning, Brian.
Hi guys. This is Brian Kazula with Movement Mortgage, and I'm just excited to be hosting the webinar and really here to support you guys and all of your education needs. If you have any questions regarding just general loan programs, how to add open house flyers with financing options when you're doing the open house, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help.
Thank you, Brian. Every month we host a training webinar that is relevant to things trending in the industry. Before we dive into that, I'd like to give you a brief background on the history of Allison James Estates and Homes. Our CEO of Allison James is Matt Crumbaugh. Matt has a strong entrepreneurial background that he brings into the real estate industry. And his wife, Jessica Crumbaugh, the Vice President of Allison James Estates and Homes, is also a top producing realtor in Florida, and she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our company as well. We've recently had some huge recognition in the industry. Our CEO, Matt Crumbaugh, was actually voted in the top 100 most powerful people in the entire residential real estate industry. We've also been ranked number 85 and 99 by transaction and sales volume, respectively, by RealTrends. One of the many things that attracts agents to work with our brokerage is the fact that we pay our agents 100% of their hard-earned commission, and we have plans that cater to agents of all levels of production. Whether you do 1 or 2 deals a year, or 100+ deals a year, or everything in between, we have a plan for you. So once again, here's my contact information. If you are interested in learning more about our brokerage and how you can keep 100% of your hard-earned commission, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Without further hesitation, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, Mr. Jeff Green, our managing broker for Northern California. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the information about our great company. It's exciting to be here with everybody today talking about a very important topic, and that is open houses. The reason I selected this topic today is because in most markets, there's a shift occurring in the way the inventory is settling into the market. A few months ago, in most markets in the United States, it was a very lean market with a lot of competitive offers coming along, a lot of people that were out there trying to get into a property but were unable to do so. And so it was pretty much a seller's market. And I'm not saying it's a buyer's market yet in most markets, but some places it is. Typically, as we come towards the fall and the winter, the inventory swells. And what happens with agents that aren't prepared, they see all the great things that happen during the busy buying season with listings, and they say, wow, I need to go get a bunch of listings. And they're behind the 8 ball, behind the curve of change. And so the smart agent anticipates market changes and says, I'm going to work with that side of the transaction that's going to get me paid sooner and get me the most opportunity to advance my business and to grow and to further my business for the future. And with that in mind, we're going to talk about open houses. Open houses a lot of times are the redheaded stepchild of the real estate industry. Seminar speakers criticize them. Statisticians, they'll talk about how they're the lowest producing tool in the real estate agent's arsenal. But as a real comparison to what they're talking about and what we're going to talk about today, I want to talk about doing them properly. So if you do an open house properly, it shouldn't have these limitations that a lot of people talk about. it should be an absolutely effective tool. So let's begin by talking about why should agents hold open houses. First of all, open houses bring more potential buyers. So if you have a listing and you want the best buyers for the listing and you want to service the listing well, they tend to bring more buyers in. It makes the listing more visible. And of course, if you're the listing agent, that has a real benefit. And if you're not, if you're holding a listing for somebody else, making that listing visible isn't the critical part. The critical part is the fact that you, as the person holding the open house, are the one making that making that property visible, so that when other people decide to sell a house, they're going to already have known about you because you're the one doing the marketing. It also gives you the ability to describe to potential sellers and to demonstrate to them what your marketing strategy is. So don't just look at it for buyers. Notice that it does make the listing more visible. Number 3, it's a great source for buyer leads, whether they're buyers for that particular house or buyers for another house. It's a great source of buyer leads. And there's some people say, well, why should I have an open house if you're going to get buyers for other properties? Well, that's something we'll talk about during the objection phase of this presentation. But I'll just say right now that if you tell a seller that you might get leads for other houses, but I also want to let you know that you're possibly going to be the recipient of other leads that I've generated in other open houses that weren't this one. So it kind of works together to create you a pool of buyer leads. Number 4, it enables you to expand and prospect your sphere of influence. So you may have people out there that are within your range, people that you talk to. You want to talk to them further. You might even say, hey, come see this open house. If you know somebody looking to buy in the neighborhood, could you please tell them what I'm doing this Saturday or this Sunday? Number 5, you're more likely to double end the listing. Now, I know in all states that's not allowed, but in California it's allowed, and many states it's allowed, and it's a great opportunity for you to increase your profitability on that listing that you have there. Number 6, it provides buyers for future listings. Now, wouldn't it be great on a listing presentation, and I've done this and it's very effective, for you to open up your computer and show a spreadsheet to the person that you're meeting with, the list of potential buyers that you have for a specific neighborhood. You go into the house and say, look, I've held open houses here for the last 2 years or 2 months or 6 months or whenever you've been doing it. I've collected a list of potential buyers in this neighborhood, and I'm going to present if I become the listing agent for your property, the first thing I'm going to do is call them up. So it's buyers for future listings. Number 7, it's potential business over time. A lot of people are unhappy with the fact that, wow, somebody comes to my open house, they're gone, they're not going to do something right away. If you learn how to talk to them and bring them along to where you need them to be for possibly your pipeline for the future, it will be a very effective source of business over time. So let's talk about seller objections to open houses. You may have a listing. You may know another agent who has a listing. You want to hold it open. There's some objections. If that other agent has a listing and they tell you they don't want to have their house held open, you might have the opportunity to talk to the client if that other agent will allow you, or at least get a message through to them. So I've heard that open houses only benefit the agent. And, that's a very common question that comes up. And really the answer to that question is not, well, I don't know, or yeah, it only benefits me. The answer is that depends on what type of agent you hire or what type of agent is doing the open house. When I hold your house open, I'm going to do everything in my power to get as many potential buyers into the property. I'm also going to, in my open house presentation, my marketing of my open house, I'm going to do it in such a way that the people that don't show up, the people that are sitting around in their home watching a football game and decide they don't want to go out or they're just not available, they're going to hear about your listing in a way that they wouldn't hear about it in any other way. And we'll talk about some of that during the strategy session on open houses and how to market them. So another objection is that open houses are a waste of time, and it basically I don't want to have my house open on Saturday for 3 hours, and a good answer to that is really simple. I have it up on the screen. I understand how you feel, and I understand how you feel, and I know I agree with that. It could be a problem for you, but many sellers feel the same way. They're frustrated by having to leave their home for 3 hours on a Saturday. That combined with other showings where they have to leave the house can consume a lot of your time. And so, yeah, establish some agreement. But what you can answer, why don't we go ahead and schedule 2 open houses in advance, this weekend and the next weekend, and we'll make them only 2 hours each. And we can then make every effort possible to schedule all the showings by other agents during that time. I'll be there holding the open house. So here's the benefit for you. Not only will you spend less time away from your house because we're gonna schedule those showings as much as possible during the 2 hours that I'm there. Not only will it'll make your time better, but I'll be here to meet the agent and the buyer in person so that I can ask them some great qualifying questions. So that's a great way to motivate somebody to do an open house. In fact, I've even had listings where I've put it in the MLS and I've said, no showings until Saturday at the open house between this time and this time. What does that do? If you're desperate to get anybody in the house at any time, that might not work. But if you have a fairly busy market, you can alleviate the pressure on the seller and have an even bigger attendance at the open house. What works even better is if agents trust you and they're willing to send their clients without them being there. That's something you can't abuse. Don't go trying to poach their client, but build a relationship with them where they trust you, and it helps. It works, and you'll find people you can do that with. You can say to another agent, are you holding it open? I'm going to send my buyer there. Treat them well, and that works really well. In some markets, that's done all the time. Some markets, it's very cutthroat. So that's a good reason to hold open houses. So let's talk about increasing open house attendance. So some of this stuff is pretty basic, but I'm going to mention it because some agents, they just don't do it. The first one is add the open house to the MLS and other secondary sites. By adding to the MLS, I'm not talking about putting notes, although you can put notes if your MLS rules allow it. But in most MLS softwares now, there is a place to add the time and the date. Check a little box. It opens up. And what that does is it syndicates it to the other sites like Zillow and Trulia, that type of thing. There are also some secondary sites out there where you can add the listing to for an open house. So second thing you want to do in increasing your open house attendance is pick a good location. So if you have the option to pick that location, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's your own listing and you really got to hold the open because the seller wants you to. But if you're holding somebody else's listing open, or if you have 20 or 30 listings and you can only be in one of them, pick one with a really good location. Good place to place signs, find busy intersections, high visibility, easy to get to, good parking. If you have to use 10 or 15 signs to get them there, that's a problem. That could be really difficult. Number 3, canvass the neighborhood. Start by using an open house rider on your sign, or an open house sign in the yard with a rider on it that says open Saturday and the times, or open Sunday. And then no later than 72 hours before, mail 25 to 50 postcards first-class mail. And you say, wow, how do I do that? Well, you know, sometimes I just make my own cards. I run them through my printer, black ink on a Dayglow green card, and I get labels from the title company, slap them on there, and say, hey, this house is going to be open on such and such time, and send them out. It's also good to let your seller know that you're doing that. It just affirms your hard work. 48 to 24 hours before, knock on 20 to 50 doors. So this is a scary thing, door knocking for some people. If you're not comfortable with the neighborhood, obviously don't go knocking doors if you're not comfortable. Don't risk your life for an open house. But most places you're going to be selling homes, you'll probably be comfortable. If you took the listing, you're probably going to be comfortable there. Start with houses that can see the house you will hold open, and use a script that you can use on pretty much every door that you knock on. It's good to know what to say. Here's a script up here. Hi, I'm Jeff Green with Allison James Estates and Homes, and I'll be holding an open house at 123 Main Street on Sunday between 1 and 3. It's 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. It's priced at $25 million. And ask them, do you own this? Are you a long-time homeowner here? Try to find out if they're renting or a tenant. I usually ask the question, are you a long-time homeowner here? Because it doesn't make somebody that's renting feel bad. Are you a buyer? Are you a seller? Excuse me, are you a tenant or a homeowner? You don't want to ask that because that has negative connotations. Are you a long-time homeowner? Oh, no, I just moved in. Or I'm renting. Okay, great. Have you ever considered purchasing a home in the neighborhood? And if they say, no, we can't, we just short sold, who do you know that would like to move into the neighborhood? Do you have any family or friends? And, just dialogue with them. And then for the seller, are you considering selling your home? You may want to be a little less of a open and ask an open question. When are you planning on moving? When would you like to be in your next house? And just dialogue with them and ask them if they know anybody. Ask them for names and numbers and say, hey, bring them to the open house. I'd like to meet you personally at the open house. At the open house, I'm going to share some really important information about the neighborhood, about what's going on in the real estate market. So come on over. A lot of agents make the mistake. They bring this wad of information when they're trying to get people to their open house. They bring too much information, and lo and behold, all the questions that the person has are answered at the doorstep, and they never come, they never bring a friend. So, and one more thing on increasing open house attendance. We need to remember point number 4 is, or point number 3, use the script, go back, knock on the doors, recanvass the ones you missed within an hour before you have the open house, and then you'll probably catch some people that weren't home. So point number 4 is a warning. Do not turn your open house into a carnival atmosphere. I've seen people do this with food and bounce houses, celebrities. You're not bringing people that are buyers to the house when you do that. You're bringing potential people to stake the house out for a robbery. You're bringing people that want to play, people that want a free hot dog. I don't recommend doing any of that kind of stuff. I did hear of a strategy one time where agents connect with homeowners who are doing estate sales and hold open houses at the same time as an estate sale. That's a little different, but don't turn the house into a festival so that you can collect leads. That will really upset your seller. Okay, so let's talk about closing skills for an open house. The first thing you need to do, if you want to close people and when I say closing, the first level of closing isn't closing them on the purchase. The first level of closing is closing them to be your client. They won't purchase a home most likely unless you've won them over to working with you. So in order to close people and to close them to work with you and to close them for the sale, you need to establish a proactive mindset. What do I mean by proactive? I mean you're going to the open house, not repeating the scripts in your mind that you've heard from a bunch of agents, scripts like open houses don't work, or I don't got anything else to do, so I'm going to try this. People like that end up showing up to an open house with as much selling skill as Napoleon Dynamite. I mean, they're just like, you know, they're like a dead fish floating down the stream. So with a proactive mindset and with a plan, especially if you're planning on making open houses a regular part of your toolkit, you can come in there with the right attitude. So what it is, first of all, is setting goals and expectations for your open houses. So when I do an open house, I have a minimum standard for attendance. It's 15. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get 15 at every open house. I've had open houses within the last 6 months where I had 2, and I've had some where I've had 50. But I know that if I do the right thing, I'm going to have somewhere around an average of 15 or more. That's a minimum standard. I don't want to do it if I'm going to approach open houses for less than that. Minimum standard for leads generated, 2 leads. Now, what is a lead? A lead is somebody who has the potential and the ability to purchase a property within the time frame that you determine that is your standard for that. Some people say a lead is somebody that will purchase within the next 6 months, 30 days, 7 days. That's up to you. I'm not going to tell you about that. A lead is not somebody who signs the registration book because it's standing in the doorway and you're scowling at them, asking them to sign the registration book, and they do it out of some kind of obligation. And you end up following up on them, and they're irritated because you now have their phone number. You may collect some numbers, some emails that are prospects, and you convert them into some kind of drip campaign, auto prospecting on the MLS. That's all good. Go ahead and do that. But set a standard and an expectation. You're going to generate some leads, and you want at least 2. Now, what's the minimum standard added to my sphere of influence? Should be 10. Those are the people that can't buy. Those are the nosy neighbors that want to know what's going on. You know, Aunt Matilda down the street. Oh, I'm never going to move. I'm going to be here the rest of my life. They're going to carry me out in a pine box. I've heard that said. Great. Can I help you? No, I don't say that. But not can I help you with the pine box, but can I help you with knowing more about the neighborhood? Sounds like you're really interested in this neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. You must love living here. Would you like to know when a house sells in the neighborhood, anytime one sells, and what the value of that house is? Great. Can I have your email address? I also need to get your phone number because when I send these out, I want to make sure that you're getting it, and I don't need to adjust it. So I'm going to set you up on a system, and you guys, you can do this in 3 minutes. Matilda's going to get an email from you anytime a house sells, and you start looking at that. On my MLS, I can tell when she's looked at it. So I call her up and say, wow, how about that house that just sold on Myrtle Street? Wasn't that fabulous? That's worth a lot of money. And by the way, I know you love this neighborhood. Who do you know that would like to move into this neighborhood? So use the open house to expand your sphere of influence. Or it could be potential buyers for other neighborhoods. But get those people in your pocket and keep them and hang on to them. Monthly goal. If you want to be aggressive at open houses and you really want to make this a top lead stream for yourself, set the goal of doing 4 open houses a month. If you do 4 open houses, and I like to do them for 2 hours at a shot. I'll talk about that a little bit. I may have that in my notes later, but I only do them for 2 hours because it creates more interest. I only do them for 2 hours because if I do them for 2 hours each, that's 8 hours of work a month rather than 12 or 15 if I do them for 3 or longer. So I do 2 hours. Create that interest. Now, if people stay past the time, I always tell the homeowner, I might be here an extra hour if there's a lot of interest. If a lot of people are interested in your house and I have to hang out longer, would that be a problem for you? They're never going to say no. But if you have 4 opens, you should generate 60 contacts, which should percolate into 8 leads and 40 added to your database for regular follow-up and MLS drip. Now, I don't know about you, but I think an agent could make a living off of generating 8 potential buyers and sellers a month and 40 people added to their database. So here's another thing you can do. Double your sphere of influence from 40 to 80 by calling the 40 people you gained at your opens in a month's time, and using the who do you know script. So out of the 40 people, at least they should know at least one person who's interested in real estate. I don't care if they're ready to buy tomorrow or if they just have a nominal interest. Add them to your sphere of influence. Call them up and say, hey, I talked to Bob. I've been getting to know him. He came to one of my open houses, and he said you're interested in your neighborhood. You just want some market data. I'm going to set you up on a program that will deliver it to you automatically. Wouldn't that be great? Great. Add them to your sphere of influence. So your database is growing exponentially. So 8 hours of work equals 2 direct escrows and potentially 8 more through your additions to your sphere of influence. So the results can be higher with better planning and with better closing skills. So to close, remember, you need an active mentality rather than a passive mentality for an open house. So number 2, closing skill number 2, be alert, friendly, well-dressed, and prepared. I went to an open house one time. A guy was wearing sweats. He hadn't shaved. He probably smelled bad. I didn't want to get too near him. He was sitting at a table. I walked in the door. I said, hi, are you the agent? He goes, yeah, take a look around. That was it. No bueno. I was just checking out the house because he was holding it open. It was in my neighborhood. But if I was a buyer, he'd be off my list. Be alert, friendly, well-dressed. Sit in a place where you can see people coming to the door. Greet them as if you would want to be greeted. Number 3, ask the right questions when you're holding an open house. The goal is to schedule an appointment with everyone who walks through the door. Now, obviously, somebody walks through the door and they're not a buyer, or they can't buy. I'm not talking about a showing appointment. In that respect, you're going to schedule a phone appointment with them and get them into your sphere of influence. Introduce yourself, ask their names, write them down on your clipboard or notebook so you can use them in conversation. Ask good questions, then ask for the business. So a lot of people like to have, I mentioned earlier, the sign-in book. My strategy, everybody, you can do your own thing. I don't want everybody to sign in because if they're people I only want to talk to them if I have dialogue established. And unless you're like totally slammed with people, you're going to have time to talk to everybody, and they feel more comfortable giving you their information if they can perceive some value in it, not just sign in. So I use a clipboard. Lately I've been using a spiral notepad, the pocket-sized one. I stick it in my back pocket. I have nothing in my hands when I'm talking to them. When they get ready to start giving me their information, I pull it out of the back pocket, so I don't have this clipboard in front of me. So smile, say this. Thanks for coming over today. I'm excited about showing you this house. Which room would you like to start in? Very important question. This tells you what is important to them about the house. Write it down. Husband and wife come in. A lot of times, husband's passive, wife is aggressive because she's the one making the decisions. Which room would you like to start in? I'd like to start in the kitchen. Write that down. So when you start sharing properties with them in the future, you're going to talk to them about the kitchen. Husband and wife comes in, or a single person comes in. Maybe it's a young guy. Where would you like to start first? I want to see the garage. Very important. Other questions. What are you looking for in a house? Tell them, that's fantastic. Repeat and affirm what they say. You're looking for a house with a great kitchen. Wow, that's great. You know, this house has a great kitchen. Let me show it to you. And go in and show them some of the features. In some markets, you can ask this question. Are you aware that in today's market you can still buy a home for about the same or less than you would pay in rent? That's not always the case, but if that's the case, ask that question. First-time buyers, a lot of times they don't know that. And sometimes there's the benefit of the mortgage interest deduction. Next question. So when are you folks planning on moving? Very important question. Why is that important? Because it basically is not a yes or no question. It's a question that opens dialogue. Well, you know what? Our house is in escrow right now over here in this other city, 75 miles away. We drove here today to find a house. We need to make an offer this week. Great. I'd be happy to help you. You won't know that if you don't ask the question. Another question, what's important to you about your move and your new home? And then you can tell them this, something along these lines. Can I be completely honest with you today? And usually they say, sure. I'm here for 2 reasons today. One, to try to sell this house. And you may want to buy this house, you may not. In either case, it's perfectly fine because I have a second reason that I'm here. I'm here to meet people and potentially find people who I can help either buy or sell a home. And one thing you can add in there, what I do at an open house, tell people this, what I do at an open house is I treat this as an employment interview. If you're thinking about buying a home anytime in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to interview an agent. So right now, if you have any questions about real estate, about my company, about what we do for you, I'd like you to ask me right now, and feel free, you can interview me right now. There's no obligation. Turn it into an employment interview. Let them know that it's important to you that they get their questions answered. And a good closing question to ask is, may I ask you, what are you looking for in a real estate agent or a real estate company? And that's a question I ask over and over again. About 3 or 4 times I'll ask it. And I ask it this way. After they've talked a lot, I say, is there anything else you're looking for in a real estate agent or a real estate company that we have not talked about yet? And if they bring it up, you answer that question, ask it again. You may word it a little differently, but what you're doing is you're reducing them to the point that they no longer have an objection for working with you. Boom. Then you can close them with the question, you know, now that I've answered all your questions about what I do, I'd like to have the opportunity to be your agent, and just ask them for a commitment. So let's move on. Asking the right questions. What you want to do is drill down and get all their questions answered, all their objections, and after answering all or most of their questions, set an appointment 2 to 4 days in the future. Now, what you're going to do at this point is collect some information, get their contact information. I usually have them write it down for me, especially if English is their second language. I may not understand their pronunciation. I may write their email address wrong. I look at it, read it back to them, edit it if I can't read their writing, and then I collect their shopping preferences. How many bedrooms, how many baths, what neighborhood. Get their lender's contact information or get them to talk to your lender, which is even better because your lender will tell you things that their lender will not. And if they don't qualify for a purchase, add them to your database, call them once a month, place them on some auto-prospecting drip system out of the MLS so you'll have something to talk about with them when you call. Then send them a list of homes and put them on auto-prospecting before the end of the day. That's your homework when you get done. Call to confirm the auto-prospecting, then use the who do you know script right away. Who do you know that would like to buy or sell a home? All right, we're going to move on to how to be ready for an open house, how to make your open house sustainable. You need an open house kit, and it needs to look better than this. It needs to be organized. That one's pretty good, but there's some disheveling going on there. So I want to contrast that with an open house kit. Why agents should prepare an open house kit. Here's the problem. Most people don't do open houses because they've got mental objections. They don't know what to say. And the most important thing is they don't know what to do, and they don't know what they need when they get there. So they don't have a checklist. They don't have anything with them to prepare themselves, so they're scrambling at the last minute. So what that does is it erects a psychological barrier that's associated with preparation. So this eliminates preparation down to merely pulling your MLS comps and throwing your sign in the car. So what does this psychological barrier do to you? It puts you in that Napoleon Dynamite frame of mind when you show up. You're kind of like passive and laid back and boring because you don't have your stuff together. You're not confident. An open house kit presents a professional image to your seller and to potential home buyers. You walk in the door with this box, and the homeowner says, "What's that?" "That's my kit. This is all my tools that I use to qualify buyers, to work with them, help them feel important about what's going on, and all my resources are in here." You can also bring work with you so you can be productive between visitors. Now, that's as if you're at an open house that's dead, which sometimes it happens. Bring some work. Don't waste that time, because if you waste time during an open house, if you're not engaged in doing something, you're going to consider open houses to be a bummer. So what to include in your open house kit? You should have some pens, some door signs. A door sign, what is a door sign? A door sign is basically an 8.5 by 11 sheet piece of paper that you can tape on the door that says, "Open house, come on in." So a lot of people don't know what to do when they come to the door, especially if they haven't been to an open house. Maybe they're ringing the doorbell or they're nervous. And if the weather's not good and you're not in a place where there's mosquitoes and flies, and you sometimes can't leave that door open. You got to close it. Have a flyer with my information, your information. Has all about you, your marketing, what you do. You might have your marketing plan. This is what I do when I list homes for sale. Marketing materials, samples of what you do, a residential purchase contract and related forms. One of the things that I find to be really helpful to do when you meet a new buyer. Have you ever purchased a home before? No, I haven't. Wow. Do you know there's a lot of forms and documents that you're going to see for the very first time? So I'd like to give you a copy of the purchase contract, what you'll be signing when you make an offer. And what's important about this is I've done this many, many times, and I'll help guide you through the process of using it. So what you're doing is attaching value. Give them a sample contract with all your contact information and put it on there so they can look at it. Go ahead and take a look at it. Some people you're going to find are they're very geeky about contracts. They want to read the whole thing. So you get that out of the way. They read it before you even have an appointment. Buyer intake or sign-in cards. If you don't want to use a notepad, have a little index card or something. Bring some comps. Bring a prospect call list or other prospecting materials. In case you're sitting there with nothing to do, you can make phone calls. Bring your listing and buyer's presentation. A lot of people have a listing presentation. Very few people have a buyer's presentation. Bring your lockbox key. I have that on the checklist because one time I did an open house and I forgot my lockbox, and that was not good. I had called a fellow agent in the neighborhood, and they let me in. Notepads for writing things down. So, coming to the close here, let's talk about becoming a neighborhood expert. This is the black belt level for open houses, and I'm going to move kind of quickly through this. First of all, you need to become known as the friendly neighborhood realtor. Just don't use that term. It's corny. If you want to take over a neighborhood with open houses by doing them regularly in a specific neighborhood, create a Facebook page for the neighborhood, and then promote it in the neighborhood. Number 3, replace either or prospecting with multiple option relationship building. I'm going to spend a few moments on this. Don't blow people off that cannot do business with you. Convert them to a center of influence. And for homeowners who can't sell, add to the database to inform them of what's happening in the neighborhood with auto prospecting, and call with a monthly update. Call them for who do you know contacts. Renters who can't buy right now, get them on a process of potential home ownership. Set up auto prospecting, credit repair. Number 4, spend a 15 measly minutes a month and become a market stat expert. Use hot sheets, trend graphics, or other stats programs. Number 5, create a neighborhood blog with hyperlocal content. That'll give you SEO. It'll give you the ability to be known in the community. Know and be known in the community. You know, that's pretty basic. Get to know the HOA board if there's one, school principals, local fire people. There's a whole slew of things I'm going to pass over because we're getting close to the end here. So let's look at best practices for open houses. Number 1, schedule a significant amount of open houses. Don't say, open houses don't work. Well, if you don't do enough of them, you won't find out. You won't cross that threshold of doing enough to make sure it works. Develop an automated system, which includes your kit. It includes hot sheets, using data from the MLS. Number 3, select prime locations. Number 4, generally hold opens for 2 hours. That's my recommendation. If you want to sit there all day, have a nice afternoon. But I think it's better to do it shorter. Creates more interest. It makes it more interesting when one buyer or 2 or 3 buyers are in the house at the same time. You might need to get a little help, but it makes it more interesting. Number 5, and it also creates interest in buying. Number 5, determine the best times to hold opens. Some neighborhoods, all the agents do them on the same day. If that's the case, do it then, because you'll have more traffic. Become a go-to person for listings, and it should say, and for open houses. If you're an agent that doesn't have a lot of listings, the agents in the company should go to you when they need somebody to hold opens. Number 7, constantly work to improve attendance and close rate for your open house. And number 8, track your numbers. You need to know what your numbers are doing for you, and how to increase your numbers, your attendance, your leads generated, and deals closed. So now we're at the point where we can have some questions, and we'll throw the floor open. I'll give it back to TC.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So very quickly, we're using GoToWebinar, and I'd like to quickly review the software. There are 2 windows. To your left, there's the viewer window, which is what you've been watching the presentation on, and to your right is the control panel, which controls your audio. If you'd like to ask a question, please type it in your question box, and I see a couple coming in. Or you can raise your hand if you'd like to get my attention for me to activate your microphone. Please wait for 1 moment while I queue up the questions. Elizabeth Fields asked, what are secondary sites good for when adding your listings?
Secondary sites are websites that promote properties. There are a number of sites out there that do not syndicate, or do not, like, you can promote it on Craigslist. There are people that look in these secondary sites. I wouldn't put a ton of energy into that, but I would add a list of them that work for you and find out which ones that do, and the ones that aren't syndicating the MLS notice that there is an open house. What they do is they find people. There are people that use those sites. You just have to play with it and see how well that works for you.
Eric Carter says, I don't currently have any listings. Do you suggest I hold open houses for agents who do have listings?
Absolutely. In fact, there are a lot of top producing agents that can't spread themselves thin enough to hold opens in all their houses that need to be held open. So what I would suggest is getting a list of agents that are in that category. Create an MLS hot sheet that pulls up their properties, and every day hit that hot sheet button and see if they've got a new listing, and be the first one to call them. They're going to like you if you make their seller happy. You're going to take workload off of them, and it's going to be a great source of business for you. And, you know, one thing I didn't mention on open house stuff, this is a cheap way to prospect. It really is. The cost per lead on this is almost 0. So it's great if you're starting out or if you're in transition and you don't have any listings.
Okay, Keely Anderson how do you address questions regarding security and that open houses will draw people casing your house?
Well, there are some people that you can never satisfy that issue with, and if that's the case, you just go with it, and just say, look, we can't. If you're not comfortable with it, then we can't do it. Generally speaking, though, what I tell people is that I keep my eye on everybody. I watch them, and I haven't had to do this, but if it gets to the point where there's too many people coming in the house, I'll have people wait outside. Can you imagine that? People lined up to come into your open house, but that rarely happens. If you think you're going to have a lot of people, put somebody on standby, like a friend. It could be a family member, a teenage kid. It doesn't have to be a licensed agent that kind of walks around and keeps an eye on everything. But on top of all that, tell your seller to put their stuff away. Don't leave their diamond rings on their nightstand or their Glock sitting in the, on the, on the dresser or anything like that or whatever. Just put all that stuff away, and they've got to know that having their house open, there is a certain amount of risk, and if they don't want to embrace it, you just can't do it.
Okay. Elizabeth Fields asked, what are some good vendors that provide single property websites?
There's a whole lot of them. If you just Google, and I don't keep track of them that much right now because I have a strategy that I do for single property websites, which I'll tell you in a second. But if you Google single property websites, you will find there's a ton of them. I would just shop them by price. There are a lot of loan officers that provide them for free. There are you can take the ML, you can take your website and you can do a search for that particular property, and you can capture that URL, and you can make your own single property website for free by going to tinyurl.com and putting the address in. So the property address would be tinyurl/123 Main Street. So you can create a branded URL for free, or you can register a URL, a domain at GoDaddy, and point it to that link from your website that has that property on it. So there's a lot of ways to make single property websites, but you can do it for free with the strategy I just said.
Okay. We've got tons of questions about administrative things such as the replay link, being able to get the checklist that you went over in your presentation today, and copies of the PowerPoint presentation. Yes, yes, and yes on all of those. We'll make the replay link available within the next day or so, and on the website that the replay link points to, you'll have access to download the resources that have been provided today. So this is the last call for questions due to time. If you have any questions, please type them in now. Perhaps raise your hand to get my attention so that we don't move on prematurely, but this is the last call for questions. Okay, and I don't see a hand raised or a question coming over. So Jeff, I'm going to throw the floor to you to give you an opportunity to make your closing remarks, and while you're talking, I will unmute the microphones of the other organizers to allow them to make their closing remarks after you're finished.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for plugging into this webinar, and my contact information is on the screen. If you have any questions, you need help, you need to know even more about Allison James Estates and Homes, feel free to give me a call. I'm still very active in real estate, not as much as I used to be because I'm a broker, but I still do open houses from time to time because I maintain a nominal lead pipeline to keep another stream of income going. So my hands are in the game. So if you ever want to talk about it or mastermind about it, I welcome your contact.
And Brian Kazula, the sponsor for today, we'd like you to go ahead and make your closing remarks.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Jeff. This was a great presentation. There's a few key takeaways that I really liked. I love the idea of mailing 25 to 50 postcards a few days before the open house to generate some interest in the neighborhood. I also love the idea of walking into an open house with a proactive mindset and a goal. I think, reaching 15 people minimum, 2 leads, 10 spheres of influence, and then committing to doing 4 open houses a month is a great idea. And then lastly, having a open house checklist, genius. How many times have you shown up to open house and you're like, I wish I would have brought that sign. I wish I would have brought that book. So critical. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. And Jeff Jabora, the floor is yours for closing remarks and to close out the webinar.
Yes, thank you, Jeff Green. That was phenomenal. Always a pleasure. As you can see, Jeff Green is a wealth of knowledge here. Brian, thank you for sponsoring the webinar today. And to all of our attendees, thank you very much for your attendance. This is a monthly thing for us. Every single month we have a webinar of this type covering a different topic. Please tune in next time as well. As TC said, these slides and the presentation itself will be available for you on our website. You can replay it as many times as you like and obtain the information. If you have any questions about working with our brokerage, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Love to see you start doing open houses and keep 100% of your commission while doing that. You can reach me. Here's my contact information. And please tune in for next month's webinar as well, which the information will also be available on our website.
All right, everyone, thank you. This concludes our webinar for today.